everyone, this is Chrysanthi from Happy Habitats, California, and our lesson today is the second part about adaptations. We are going to be taking a deeper look at different kinds of adaptations. The materials that you will need for this part of the lesson are the descriptions of these made-up environments that we will use for our activity. You're going to need this adaptation brainstorm sheet, a blank piece of paper, a pen and a pencil, and something to color with. I'm going to be using some colored pencils. You might also want this animal adaptations help sheet to remind you of some of the adaptations that real animals have to survive when we are going through our activity. We'll be looking at these adaptations individually during this lesson. The vocabulary that you will need to know for this lesson is adaptation, a characteristic of a living thing that helps it survive in its environment. This is a review from the first part of our lesson, but it's a good word to know and remember. Our next word is climate, the weather patterns in an area over a long period of time. Next we have camouflage, the way in which an animal hides itself so that it blends in with its surroundings. In this picture we can see a chameleon trying to blend in with the leaf that it's standing on. Next we have defense, the way in which an animal protects itself. We can see that this rhino has two horns, one a bit bigger than the other, that it probably uses to defend itself. Next we have quills, which are hollow, sharp spines used for defense. A classic animal that has quills is our friend the porcupine. Next is predator, an animal that eats other animals. So in this picture that shows a cheetah chasing what looks like an antelope, the cheetah is the predator. Our last vocabulary word is prey, an animal eaten by a predator as food. So in the same example, the antelope is the prey. Now we are going to move on to our activity. We've been looking at different adaptations that animals have and how where they live affects their adaptations. Camels live where it is hot and sandy, so they need to have adaptations that help them keep out the sand and save water. For this activity, you are going to be given a made-up ecosystem. The ecosystem in the picture is actually a real one, but the ones that you'll be given will be made up. You will be asked to create an imaginary organism that will need to survive in this ecosystem. It will need to find food, avoid predators, move easily, survive in the climate, and care for their young. There are some crazy environments, so the animals might need some crazy adaptations. We are going to look at some examples of adaptations in different categories. These are adaptations that real animals have and might give you inspiration for adaptations that your animal might have. First, let's take a look at some adaptations different animals have that help them get and eat food. Your organism will also need a way to find and eat food. Animals like sharks have sharp teeth to catch and eat their prey. Horses have big flat teeth that help them eat plants. Birds have different beak shapes for the different foods they eat. A long beak might be good for catching fish, and a short beak might be good for eating insects. There are lots of other adaptations animals use to catch and eat their food in the real world besides these, but you may want to come up with your own adaptations too. Now, let's look at some real adaptations animals have that help them defend themselves. You want your organism to be able to find food, but not to be some other animal's prey. Some animals have quills, like this porcupine. Others have tusks, like these warthogs, or horns, like the rhino, to protect themselves from predators. Other animals use camouflage, like this chameleon, that helps them blend into their ecosystem so that predators can't find them. Some animals, like a hissing cockroach, even make noises to scare off predators. Even a skunk, which sprays a bad smell, makes predators not want to get near it. Besides defending itself, an organism also needs to care for its young. Babies can't defend themselves very well and need to be protected. Wallabies and kangaroos have pouches to carry their babies in to keep them safe. A scorpion carries its babies on its back to protect them. Lots of birds build nests to keep their young safe. Like we saw with the camels, lots of animals have adaptations that help them adjust to the hot or cold climate they live in. Walruses have blubber to help them survive in cold climates. Some animals, like elephants, have big ears that help them stay cool in hot climates. The last category of adaptations that we are going to take a look at are adaptations that help animals move. This might be to help them avoid predators, find prey, or both. Birds have very light bodies and bones that let them fly. Fish have fins and tails so that they can swim. Leopards have to move very quietly so that they can sneak up on their prey without it knowing it's being hunted. Antelopes can run very fast to help them escape from predators, maybe like that leopard that's trying to sneak up on it. These are all examples of adaptations real-life animals use to survive. When creating an animal to survive in your ecosystem, you can use these for inspiration, or come up with your own crazy adaptations. Before you create your animal in one of the made-up ecosystems, I am going to show you an example. The environment my animal is going to live in is the Canoe Desert. Before we read the description of the Canoe Desert, let's look at what information we will need in order to create our adaptations. We will need to know the climate the animal lives in, its available food, our animal's prey, what its predators might be, what landforms, like mountains, rivers, or deserts, are in the climate, and any interesting features of the climate. After we have all of this information, we will also need to choose how our organism is going to care for its young. Let's go back to our environment reading, and for this reading, we are going to be doing a close reading of the description of our environment. First, together, we will read the description one time without stopping. Then, we're going to read it again and highlight the important information we will need in order to fill out our brainstorm sheet. So let's begin. Environment 3, the Canoe Desert. In the Canoe Desert, the average temperature is 140 degrees during the day and 100 degrees at night. Rain has never fallen on this dry, hot, mountainous land, and there are no rivers or streams. But every morning, a thick gray fog rolls in from the western sea, soaking the land for a brief time. In the shadows of the Black Mountains, tall, green, prickly bulbous plants grow in the boiling red sand. Many small reptiles live here. Small, scaly lizards and venomous multicolored snakes, making their homes in the small caves in the mountains. Giant carnivorous but slow-moving sandworms live under the desert sands, hunting at night and when the fog rolls in. So now that we've read it once without stopping, we are going to read it again, this time highlighting any important information that might help us answer some of these questions on this side and fill out these boxes here. So let's read it again. Environment 3, the Canoe Desert. In the Canoe Desert, the average temperature is 140 degrees during the day and 100 degrees at night. This might be some important information that we should highlight just to show how hot it is in our climate. So this information here is probably good information to know about our animal's climate. Rain has never fallen on this dry, hot, mountainous land, and there are no rivers or streams. But every morning a thick gray fog rolls in from the western sea. So although there's no water up here, might be a good idea to note that there is a thick gray fog that comes in from the western sea. So I'm just going to highlight this: every morning a thick gray fog rolls in from the western sea, soaking the land for a brief time. In the shadows of the Black Mountains, so the Black Mountains is a landform. So we're going to highlight, there's some mountains in our climate so that we can write it down under our landform section. Tall, green, prickly, bulbous plants grow in the boiling red sand. So I see two really important parts here. I see this description of these plants. So I'm going to highlight that. That might be some food that our animal could eat. I'm also going to look at this red sand. This might be important if we want our animal to have camouflage. It's good to know what color its surroundings are so it can camouflage well into them. Many small reptiles live here. So these reptiles might also be some prey that our animal could have. Small, scaly lizards and venomous multicolored snakes, making their home in the small caves in the mountains. I'm also going to highlight just this small caves part. It might come in use later if we need something for our animal to hide in or maybe to have a nest in. Giant carnivorous but slow-moving sandworms. Ooh, this might be some predators that our animal could have. The word carnivorous means that an animal is a carnivore. So it's going to eat meat or other animals, possibly our animal. So I'm going to highlight that these sandworms are really big. They eat other animals, but they could be slow moving. Live under the desert sands, hunting at night and when the fog rolls in. Awesome. So now that we've done our close reading and we've highlighted some important information, I'm going to go back to our brainstorm sheet and we can start filling it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to write the name of our environment at the top. Let me get out my text. So I'm going to write Canoe Desert up here at the top. And I'm also going to write my name on this name spot. Next, we need to write some information about our animal's climate. So if we went back, we saw that this is a desert. The average temperature is 140 degrees during the day and 100 degrees at night. That's pretty hot. So let's go back to our climate and write that it's hot and dry. Now, let's see what our animals' available food could be. So right here we saw that there were some small reptiles that might eat. And also, this sort of is the description of a cactus. So, the two available food sources our animal has are reptiles and cactus. Let me shrink this here so it all fits. Now, what could our animal's prey be? So prey is going to be another animal that it eats. So a cactus is a plant, so it's not really prey, but these reptiles might be some good prey for our animal. So I'm going to write reptiles. Now what about predators? What animals are trying to eat our animal? If we go back, we see down here about these giant carnivorous sandworms. Those might be some predators for our animal. So I'm going to write down here that our animal might need some defense from giant sandworms. Next, what are some landforms in our environment? So that might be any mountains, a river, or a desert. So if we go back here, we know that there are the Black Mountains, and it's also mostly desert, seeing how the name is the Canoe Desert. So I'm going to write in, there are some mountains and desert. Almost done. We need some other features. So what's something interesting about our environment that might help us create the best possible organism? So something really unique about this that I saw is that every morning a thick gray fog rolls in. So that's a pretty unique little feature that we could use to help us create our animal. So I'm going to write here, thick fog rolls in every morning. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and shorten this here so that you can see. Okay, and caring for young doesn't really have any features about the environment in our reading, so we'll just answer that when we answer this side. So now that we have our information filled out, we need to come up with different adaptations that will help our organism survive in the environment. So we're going to go through each one of these boxes and we're going to answer the question over here. So, how will your animal stay warm or cool? So we know that our animal is going to need to stay cool because its climate is so hot and dry. So I'm going to write, let's think back to our previous activity we did, where we were looking at different types of adaptations that real animals have. So I remember that the elephant has big ears that help it radiate some heat, helps it keep cool. So I'm going to write big ears to radiate heat. And radiate heat just means that it helps it stay cool. I'm also going to add in something that real animals don't have, but I think I want my animal to have. And I'm going to add in some fans. Yep, I know it's pretty crazy because animals don't really have fans, but I'm going to write in special fans that wave to keep, doesn't really fit there. So let's shorten my box a little bit. Special fans that wave to keep it cool. All right, let me spread these out so you can see them. So my animal is going to have both big ears and some special fans that are going to wave to keep it cool. Next, in our available food section. So our available food is reptiles and cactus. So what will our animal eat? What does it need to be able to eat this food safely? So I'm going to have that it's going to eat these cactus plants. I'm also going to make my font a little bit smaller, just so I can fit everything, because I realize up here we had some trouble fitting things. So I'm going to write, oh no, I accidentally deleted my text. That's all right. I'm just going to add in another one. So I'm going to write eats cactus plants. I'm also, in order to eat these plants, it's going to need large flat teeth to chew leaves and tweezers on its lip to remove the cactus needles. So if our animal just bit into a cactus, it might get a mouthful of these needles. So I'm going to have little tweezers, probably on its upper lip, that help it take out the needles so that it doesn't hurt itself. Next, for prey. Our prey are these reptiles. So what special features does our animal have to help it catch its prey? So if our animal is going to catch some reptiles, it probably doesn't want the reptiles knowing that it's being hunted by our animal. So I'm going to give it a cool little feature of camouflage. So we know that when we were looking at our passage, we know that the sand is red. So our animal, if it's going to camouflage into the red sand, it's also going to be red. So I'm going to give it red skin, the color of the sand to, just want to make sure my box is the right size, camouflage itself. So camouflage can also be used by prey to stay away from predators, but some predators use it so that its prey doesn't see it coming. Next, we have our predators, which are our giant sandworms. So we know that these giant sandworms are really big, but they're also slow moving. So how am I going to be able to defend myself? How does our animal defend itself? So if it's big and slow moving, I am going to first give it some spines. It is covered in sharp spines, just as an added layer of defense. And I'm also going to give it 20 legs. And has 20 legs, which help it run fast. So we know that these giant sandworms aren't that fast, but still I'm going to give my animal 20 legs so that it can easily escape from the giant sandworms. Next we have our landforms. So that's mountains and desert. And the question is, how does your animal move on land or in water? So we don't have water, but we do have 20 legs. So although we wrote in the first part, I'm just going to write again how our animal moves. 20 legs help it move quickly over the hot sands. So it also doesn't want to get its little feet burned, so we're going to make it move really quickly. Now, almost done. So what are some other features? So we talked about this thick fog that rolls in every morning. So far, we've looked at how our animal is going to get food and avoid being another animal's food, but we haven't really talked about how it's going to get water. So although it doesn't really rain in the desert, and our description told us that there's really no rivers or streams, but there is a thick gray fog that rolls in. So maybe our animal can get some water from the fog. So I'm going to add another text box, and I'm going to write its body is covered in tiny hairs that I spelled hairs wrong. Let me go back. Hairs that absorb water from the fog. And because the fog only comes in like once a day, it needs to be able to store that water. So I'm going to write that water is stored in a bulb in the tail. Oh, so this doesn't really look like it fits. So, there we go. It sort of fits. Close enough. All right, we're gonna say that fits right there. There we go. There we go. So its body's covered in tiny hairs that absorb water from the fog, and water is stored in a special bulb in the tail. Now the last thing we need to look at is how is our animal going to care for its young? So this one, because there's not really any features from our passage that really specifically talk about how our animal is going to care for its young, I'm going to use some information that we pulled over here about these small caves, because I really don't want my animal's young to be eaten by these sandworms. So I'm going to write, let me make my text box the right size. It lays eggs in specially hollowed out stone nests in the caves of the mountains so that the sandworms can't get them. Awesome. So now that we have all of our features of our environment and the adaptations that our animal is going to have, we can draw it. This is the fun part. So besides having the adaptations that we wrote over here, the animal can look any way we want it to look. First, I'm going to draw my organism in pencil. Then I'm going to outline my drawing in a black pen. Next, I'll color it in using some colored pencils. We should also label the adaptations that we draw to make it clear how our organism will survive. Awesome, our creature looks great. Let's make sure we give it a name and write what environment it lives in. I'm calling mine the spiky alborb. So now that I've finished doing our example, you can do the same thing that I did with one of the other environments. So you could either choose to do yours on Jungle Island, the plains of Moldova, or the majestic mountains. So I already did the Canoe Desert, but you can pick one of these other three. What you'll do is you can read through it once without stopping, like we did in our close reading example, and then go back and highlight some important information that you will need to fill out your information section. So once you have this information section all filled out, you can come up with some different adaptations that your animal has that will help it survive. They can be as crazy as you want. Some can be based on real animals, like we did a couple in our example, like the big ears that are sort of similar to that of the elephant, but they don't have to be. Once you have all your adaptations filled out, you can draw your organism. It might be a good idea to do what I did and to draw it in pencil first, then outline it in pen, and then color it in. Make sure you label all of your different adaptations. You can give it a name, like I called mine the spiky alborb, and write where it lives. Also, make sure that you put your name on it. I loved learning all about adaptations with you. I'll see you in the next Happy Habitats California lesson.